Welcome everyone to another round of the conversations. I've got Alexander Watanabe here again for the third time, and we were just commenting like the earphones. They're actually because you're getting jacked, man. That's
They're
definitely what
getting
it is.
smaller in
Yeah,
proportion to the okay.
100%. And that's where we actually ended it off for the last one. So how have you been going? Like, you feel yoked? You feel what's new?
I think when I started, I weighed around like 83 to 85 kilos. I don't know what that is in pounds. And then I initially when I started working out, I kind of dropped down to like 80, 81. And then I started watching a lot of Mark Ripito, the starting strength
Nice.
guy.
Starting strength, yeah.
It was like Midwestern Ohio, and he says that you're not a man unless you weigh 200 pounds. And so I decided, like, okay, let's go for it. And I always thought I was a hard gainer, as they say, right?
Yep.
I remember in uni, I was trying to get to 70 kilos. I was like 80 something, right? Or 60 something. No matter what I did, I could never get to 70 kilos. And then, during COVID, I stepped on a scale. I was 85. I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, what happened there? But
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, it was just, I wasn't eating, so I really don't buy this hard gainer bullshit anymore. It's just like, I didn't quite do you heard of GOMAD?
No, let's
GOMAD is
go.
gallon of milk a day and
Oh
whole
God,
milk.
man. It's been a while since I've dived into so like I'm kind of in the similar-ish opinion with you, which was I was thought like, yeah, I'm a ectomorph, endomorph. I can't remember the skinny one. I'll never really get jacked, put on tons of weight. My dad was always really skinny. My brother as well.
Yeah.
My mum, and I was just going like, yeah.
I just
When
don't
I
like
first started,
eating, and
Same.
yeah.
When I was at the gym, I just did not eat enough for it to be able to just allow my body to put on like that extra
I think two
energy
things
calories
for
into me somewhere.
I never liked machines. Even when I only seriously worked out a little bit when I was an undergrad, um, and then I stopped for like 10 or 15 years. And even back then, I always subscribed to like free weights are better than machines, but it was always like dumbbells and like dumb isolation movements like curls and whatnot. And I think the major difference is just barbell training is so much more fun. Um, and I wasn't eating enough, and so and like I said, even today I don't like eating. Like I'll easily skip breakfast and lunch and just like have a coffee in the morning and then be like, oh, I should probably eat something. Um, but at least now, I start with one of those like meal replacement protein drinks with a bunch of other stuff in the morning. Um,
That's me, man. I eat once a day in the
yeah,
evenings. I've
exactly.
always hated breakfast. Just never enjoyed it.
And then I'll try
And
to drink not a
a
gallon, but like
gallon of
half a
milk.
liter of milk throughout, or half a gallon of milk
Oh,
like throughout the day, and whole milk
I was
because it's like
yeah.
fat, right? Like you just got to get some macro level stuff in. And I think I got up to 93 kilograms at my peak. I've been slacking on the milk and other stuff, so I'm back down to 90. But
Yep.
I've never been so big, and I do notice that like people smile at me more
People tremble.
when I drop the kids off, like like I don't know, they just kind of like pay attention to you more, or like they kind of they're friendlier, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I don't think I look jacked, but I take up more space than I ever have, and I think I feel sturdier, right?
Yeah.
And I just like
Well,
yeah.
it's how you carry yourself as
Hmm.
well. Confidence. Just I know if I get a bit of confidence, and for me, I've always kind of like simmer at a low level. I'm not
Hmm.
naturally a high energy, high confidence sort of guy,
Hmm.
and yeah, sometimes I'll get like a little burst from something happening in my life, and it definitely feels that people interact with me differently,
Yeah.
or it could just be me jacked up on whatever adrenaline, testosterone, whatever it is
But I
that
love it.
really impacts
I've been in a
confidence.
little bit of shape in undergrad, but it was always like skinny fit. And like I have some friends who are like, why are you getting so big? And like, why are you fat? Kind of thing, right? Or like they're like, do you like show me your six pack? And I'm like, I don't care about a six pack. I'm just trying to get strong. Like,
Yeah.
and they're like, I've literally had my best friend tell me like, why are you trying to get strong? Like, don't you just want to look good naked? And I'm like, I'm married to a beautiful woman I'm in love with. Like, I'm not trying to pull, at a nightclub or
We've
anything.
already kind of got it sorted.
I don't care about being attractive. I'm just having fun lifting weights. And I think the thing that I like, I've got her lifting now too, is like compound heavy lifts are so much easier to get people into and build a habit with working out, because almost all of us have that kind of like gamer mindset, right? Even if we don't know it. Like, she's not a gamer at all. I'm not a gamer either, but what is the thing? Like, you just, when you log your workout and you can see the progress on your very first workout, I think that's like the biggest hack. Because like, the whole thing about working out is like, you get delayed gratification. You got to work for like a month or two before you see any results, like physically in your body, right? Immediately, day 1, day 2, like, you immediately have results if you're logging, not strength-based gains, but like the other thing had never heard of is like, strength is a skill, right?
I could probably speak to that one, because I'm at this point now. So basically, like, all I do is handstands. That's kind of my thing, and I've pretty much gotten to the point where I just don't have any more real like strength needs. Your video jumped out, by the way. You're blue.
Am I blue? Wow, that's a filter.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. There we go.
Unplug the cable, replugged.
So like, what I do nowadays basically is all pretty much handstand training, and with a little bit of calisthenics. And I'm basically at the point where my body doesn't want to put on any more weight. It's kind of like, no, you've kind of put on as much muscle and things that you want, and so it's all just kind of the neurological gains, the tiny little detailed movements of the hands to catch the balance, to find it, to have your legs in different positions. And it's weird, man. It is weird being like, I'm putting all this effort in, and it's and I kind of know it's not really strength anymore. It's just literally trying to rewire my brain. It's got more of a feeling of learning a language or that
it's
sort
really
of thing.
funny, not funny, but interesting watching my wife, right? Like, she's gone from an empty bar to like, I think a 60 kilo or one plate, I think deadlift or something like that. I don't know what a squat is at, 50, something like that. But like, she's kind of tapped out on, because she's not eating, right? I'm like, is my video gone again?
Yeah, it did.
Are we doing a podcast now?
I can make it just audio one. It's not a big deal.
Maybe that will be fine. But what's the point there? She's not willing to like eat, and I keep trying to get her to like have at least like a protein shake a day or something, so that, because I think she's kind of tapped out on that. She was improving and she really liked it on her lifts, because you're just learning the movement pattern, right? And learning how to recruit, muscle fiber or whatever, and getting used to that. But she's not willing to eat really, and so, or just doesn't have the habit of paying attention. So I think she's kind of like plateaued after the first couple of months, right? And hanging out where she's at, and she's getting frustrated now because she's not improving her lifts as much as she'd like, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Well, it is that kind of gamer mentality. Not gamer mentality is probably the wrong way of looking at it, because I've really gotten into speed running recently. Just not me playing, but watching speedrunners and
that kind of min-maxing kind of thing of just.
Yeah. Well, this is where it's they try and just get the like biggest.
Fastest,
game of,
I know, like
Super
Mario or whatever, right? And you skip the levels with the whistles and whatnot, right?
Yeah, and it's like all about these frames, and you've got to like the frame rule, and there's like 23 frames, 13 frames, something. I don't know, but it's just people who are absolutely dedicated to this one particular thing over and over and over and over
What
and
was
over
that
again.
Japanese game that came out? Was it this year or last year? It's like those Dark Souls things or whatever.
Dark Souls was from a while ago, I
Yeah,
believe,
but
but
the
yeah.
same publisher. What's it called?
Yeah, I've no idea.
It's the
I'm not into the.
it's got like the gold tree in the background. It's but like it's like this big open world game that's supposed to take like forever. I watched
It's
it.
about samurai or something, is it?
I
A friend of
know
mine's been playing a.
not Oblivion. What I'm not a gamer. Not Elder Scrolls. What was the thing? I forget.
Type it.
It was this big game of the year or whatever, Japanese publisher. But like they speed ran it, but the whole thing was just like glitching through floors, so that like they run and then
Yeah,
they like crouch or something, and then they like
yeah.
fall through the world, and then they're like teleported somehow to the last boss of the first thing, and then they keep doing this, and they complete this like 80-hour game in like 3 minutes or something, just by you know
Jesus.
um glitching through floors continuously.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, so you never got into gaming? It was
I dropped
never
out of high
appealed to you?
school a few times because of EverQuest. So I've
Okay,
been
so
into
you did.
gaming, and then WoW and stuff. But whenever I get basically when my progress in my life stalls out, I used to often switch to gaming to try to I like that progression, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
But I got tired of it because it's like what I realized eventually is like everyone plays these games in kind of the same way, and it's kind of just a hamster wheel, right? And what
Yeah.
you know what I mean by hamster wheel, right? Like these treadmill mechanics, right? Like grind out for the next level or the next loot or
Yeah.
whatever, and then
Yeah, I get it.
you just get back on the wheel, and it just feels like such a waste of time, and that like I could be progressing myself, you know, learning
Yeah.
something or
Yeah,
doing something, and it's like, why am I wasting all this time doing this crap? So
the only ones I ever really played were ones with definite ends. So it'd be Ratchet and Clank,
hmm
whether it's, you start it and you finish it.
hmm
And there's a final finish to the game and then you're done.
yeah,
And sure, you can go
I'm
back
a
and
sucker. I recently played through, what was it, Diablo? Was it 5 or 4? I don't know which one came out. And I'm a real sucker for those like loot grind, kind of shitty MMO mechanics where you're just like grinding out for like a point better
yeah,
stat kind of thing. Um,
I cannot do
yeah,
that.
they're really bad, right? But at least this time I didn't stop doing everything else in my life while I was doing it, and
Yeah,
I
and
kind of
it sounds
use
like
them intentionally as like I just need a brain reset. I need to like clear my brain of everything. I need to do this thing for like a week or two and like totally no life it, and then get back to what I'm doing. Do you know what I mean? Kind of like
yeah,
a reset
yeah,
button.
for
It's kind
sure.
of like a what are
I
the
know what you mean. I don't do it myself,
yeah.
but
It's like a
I know what
palate
you mean.
cleanser, like
Yeah,
when you eat sushi and you put the ginger between sushi, whatever, to like reset your head. That's what
yeah,
I think of like a week or two gaming session to be.
yeah, for sure. So what have you actually been up to then? Because I know you're working on like the Unsigs version 2, and you're looking at doing that on Ethereum. You want to give
Yeah,
us a
so
bit of a
while I'm doing a few things now. One is I capitulated to Ethereum because yeah, you and I usually we talk about crypto instead of working out in gaming. But
well, we'd usually talk about art, to be honest.
yeah,
I don't think we ever really talked about Cardano particularly, but
cool.
yeah, I'm more interested in the art side of things rather than the
Yeah, so,
crypto.
so I'm I'll give some context, right? Like I with Unsigs, the first thing, like it was like how do you make art with a blockchain? Because I really do see I don't even think blockchains are especially novel. I just think human creativity explores various mediums and technologies to kind of figure out and understand reality and experience. And so I think I don't know if we've ever talked about this example briefly, but like fireworks or gunpowder, invented in China, was used for cultural ends as like a display of soft power to the Chinese population. And then when Europeans got it, they kind of like militarized it,
Destruction.
and made it into, like harquebusers and then, rifles and all this kind of stuff. But my point there is just like technology has cultural, financial, and like political implications, right? And so, and almost any technology. And so crypto kind of started out in the financial realm, but I think or blockchains have started out in the financial realm, but it also has artistic implications and other cultural implications. And so that's kind of been my interest, coming from an architecture background, about how do you make something and understand it and do something meaningful with it. So unsigs were, yeah.
Can I jump
Yeah,
in
please do.
and so you said from the architecture background, and I remember reading a post from you from like a little while ago, might have been actually just recently,
Mhm.
but you essentially saying that one of the things that fascinated you was the kind of like legacy aspect of these things might be a bit more, they've got names like fucking immutable, so that it's got that aspect of being able to sustain itself. But
Yeah,
then there's to juxtapose that with software is always going out of date.
exactly. So, I mean, every architect like wants to build a pyramid, like something that will last for millennia. But buildings nowadays are built from like stick frames and drywall, right? And they kind of like instantly start to rot away and disappear quite quickly. And so, I think what's really cool about using a blockchain as a kind of medium for art is you get archivality for free, right? Or archivalness. I don't know. I don't think archivality is a word. I usually put a hyphen between
Sounds cool though.
archival and itty. But the point being there is that because these are just economic engines of, transferring value around, by putting your art onto a blockchain and not just making it a link to a JPEG, but actually using that mechanism for creating and storing the art, like you instantly get like an institution or a thing which will preserve it, as long as that chain continues to be a significant economic, engine. And so when I released unsigned algorithms on Cardano, I believed Cardano was going to be a significant economic engine. Um, I no longer believe that for a variety of reasons. And so it's like, well, what is the economic engine that I see succeeding in? And right now, I believe it's just like the default is Ethereum, unless you have a very, very good case for something else. So I'm working on that.
Yeah, for sure. It reminds me of this guy. I went to I go to Bitcoin meetups here
Hmm.
pretty regularly because I kind of like the in real life seeing it.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just be like an internet warrior,
It's not. It's really not.
and yeah, so we'll get onto that maybe a bit later. But there was this guy, and he was talking about the you know Bitcoin's immutable, like it's gonna last forever. Like this thing
Mhm.
is so valuable. Aliens are gonna want this stuff. They're like, and I'm just like, and I was thinking like, dude, if there's aliens out there, and imagine they traded stars
Mhm.
like we trade
They're not gonna care about our
coins,
math and our
they are
ledger
not
of
going to give a
the
shit about
of yeah, yeah,
Bitcoin.
yeah, exactly.
So I was going like, yeah, I mean, look, it's a nice thing. Typically, from my understanding of history, monetary systems tend to last for 70 to 100 years,
Mhm.
something like that. And then a better, newer one comes along. So, Bitcoin, I think, has got a good chance of being around for a fair while. But
Mhm.
I mean, come on, dude, like the, the aliens trading stars, like all of this stuff is,
Yeah.
it, we can try our best, but I don't think
I
looking
think
further than 100 years is really that smart.
yeah, I think, if there is another crypto after Bitcoin that kind of achieves the most of them, I think those ledgers will be kind of rolled up into and preserved as like a subset of the next thing. Do you get what I'm saying?
Could be,
like
yeah.
like just archived, or kind of, if blockchains become like a dominant kind of method of commerce and like I don't know, mercantilism or trade, I could see that it would be notable to us in the future. I doubt it would be notable to a interplanetary intelligence, right? In terms
Yeah.
of right, its
Yeah,
locality.
correct.
So
So you'd created Unsigs. I know you did a couple of other things on the Cardano blockchain,
mm-hmm,
Perfect NFT. We talked about
mm-hmm,
that last time. Maybe we can get into the reasons why you don't believe it anymore.
mm-hmm.
But you've started playing around with Ethereum. It sounds like
Yeah.
and creating something I guess, are you still going for that same aspect of the wanting to have it fully on chain?
Yeah,
Is that
even more so than unsigs, like unsigs that I've always tried to explain, like they are code stored on Cardano, right? And they also include an environment definition so that you can run that code someplace else. But to me, the next logical step is that you actually use the blockchain to execute the code, right? Like, so it's not just Python or JavaScript stored on the chain. It's the smart contract language of the chain itself being used to generate an artifact. And the advantage there is that you just get like a less complex system in a way because you have less dependencies, right? Like instead of having to rely, I always try to like wake Cardano people up to the fact that what they call on-chain NFTs don't run on-chain, right? That these essentially these little JavaScript text.
could you explain that more? Because
Yeah.
this is definitely getting a little bit beyond my
So have
comprehension
you've
of.
heard of JavaScript before? Like when you make a
Yeah.
web
Yeah.
page, you have like HTML and CSS, and then the dynamic things are done in JavaScript. Like, and so when you have an on-chain NFT on Cardano, it's really just text. All NFTs on Cardano are just they don't have to actually be text. They could be raw bytes stored, kind of something. But usually it's text stored on chain. And then what something like Pool PM or JPEG store, what they do is they send that JavaScript text to your Chrome tab to be rendered inside of Chrome or on your iPhone, in Safari or whatever. So the code is actually running locally in your browser. It's stored on chain, but it's executed in your browser. And my concern with that is that I've worked in a lot of installation art when I was, a grad student and this kind of thing, and it's pretty common that like when you have some kind of mixed media installation art that involves programming, that you'll have to run it on a specific piece of hardware, like some 1986 Compaq, 486 processor. Like the people who do these kind of installation art, like and curate it, they actively have to like preserve and worry about the hardware that runs the art exhibit failing and
Gotcha.
having to
Yeah.
go on eBay to like find a replacement because the code doesn't work on modern systems because of the way it was done. And so because of my, I guess, architecture background, I'm more interested in things that last, you know I think in a way that I think it was we usually talk about writing a bit, but I don't know if we've talked about this. Vonnegut, Kurt Vonnegut, the Slaughterhouse-Five guy, and
Hmm.
a few other fun things. I think he writes in his autobiography that like the reason that you write essentially is to connect with people across time and space because
Yeah, I think you did
you're
mention that
kind of a
last time. Yeah.
loner and whatnot, and so um, the idea there is that while you can always have some ephemeral kind of art that is like for a moment and then fleeting, like cherry blossom or whatever, right? Um, I do think a large value in art is the ability to persist and last and to connect with people, later generations. Because I do think culture is kind of that interstitial thing that grows and changes, but also lasts from one generation to the next, right? It's not this generation's thing. It is kind of what you pass on. And so if you can't pass it on, it kind of becomes more like a pop music track that is listened to, enjoyed, and forgotten, rather than some kind of great piece of music.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I get you. And so what's the difference then between the two chains, I guess, in that
So by
that
using
sense?
Ethereum, or if you were to do this on Cardano, like by having the code execute on the blockchain itself, you eliminate a dependency. And when you have a complex system that relies on multiple different dependencies, any one of those dependencies, disappearing or becoming broken or whatever, kind of makes it impossible for you to recreate that piece, right? And so by eliminating dependencies, you are basically making it more likely that the thing will last, because it's actually so by if we say that an unsig relies on Cardano and Python existing in the future, if you were to
Mm-hmm.
make an unsig that only needed Cardano, it only needs Cardano, right? And so if people forget about what Python is, but somehow Cardano
Gotcha.
lasts,
Yep.
then it's okay. And so, the same thing with Ethereum is that most people are doing these Ethereum NFTs using Ethereum and a link to a JPEG. Some people are doing Ethereum plus some JavaScript stored on chain. And what I'm trying to kind of do is generate like an image or a piece of media which is made by the blockchain itself using Solidity or the smart contract language. And then
Gotcha.
there's no need to kind of interpret that code someplace else. And it's like we don't have to worry about that compact 486 PC, from the 80s, existing in the future. We just have to worry about Ethereum existing in the future.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I've heard of ones like this before. Once again, I'm sure there's technical
Mm-hmm.
nuances which I'm missing, but uh, typically it'll be like on-chain generative art or something
Mm-hmm.
like that, where it changes based on the inputs of what's happening on the actual chain itself,
Mm-hmm.
as in, you know, uh, fee prices are X amount, and so that's a parameter that'll change the
Mm-hmm.
actual work. Is that how you're imagining yours will, I don't know, look or feel? It'll change, or this is something that'll be
Dynamism
more of
is
a
definitely
static?
something you can do on blockchains a bit. It requires a kind of oracle or some kind of data feed in. I don't think everything needs to respond to something else. I think there is an aspect of what I'm working on next that does change, but it's more about like with Unsigs, how one of the main things that I kind of conceived with them was that I kind of put out these building blocks into the world, and then I anticipated other people assembling them into larger kind of collages, right? And that's because for me, if you think about what a blockchain is and this kind of like peer-to-peer thing, it didn't seem quite right to me that I think we might have talked about this with the perfect NFT, but it's like this scholastic A to B type thing. I wanted it to be more um, like a kind of conversation between multiple people. And so the unsigs are meant to be assembled by the what you would normally call like the audience or the spectators. They're actually
Mm-hmm.
participating in the work. And I do think that with the next thing that I'm doing, there is this aspect where I put out the kind of rule set for how this thing is and what it is. And depending on how the people who interact with it and kind of spectate or participate, the work will evolve into something else, or there will be, I don't know how it will kind of, how, what, there's a, let's say there's a block of marble and I kind of give a chisel and a, what do you call it, hammer. The audience can kind of sculpt out a little bit within some kind of framework what that sculpture will be in the end. And I
Yeah,
think that's
that's super
interesting.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. There's some parallels actually to almost what I'm doing here, although I don't call myself an artist for sure. But so what we do with this podcast is like the essence of a podcast is the RSS feed, which is basically the XML file that is hosted somewhere,
Mhm.
and it has all the information on it, telling this is where the link to the audio exists.
Mhm.
This is where external links related to chapters or something extra that you might want to put in. Audio, of course, being the main one, but you can also have video podcasts, so it can be an MP4. And there's some really cool stuff that's going on with this kind of community that I'm in called Podcasting 2.0, which is, it's really changing, I think, the medium of
Mhm.
what a podcast is, much how you would not say a radio station. You wouldn't say that's a podcast.
Mhm.
It's even though they have very similar type of qualities. The main difference, of course, being radio is live. It's happening in the moment, and it's not on demand. Whereas podcasting is on demand. You get out your phone, and then you listen whenever you want. That's the whole point of them. And there's this really cool stuff, for example, where basically I have like a lightning a Bitcoin lightning address
Mhm.
in my feed. And there's all of these apps now which allow someone who is listening on a particular one, we'll just take Fountain, for example, they can send in a message from that app. It'll and using the Lightning Network, so layer 2 of Bitcoin, send me messages with a kind of payment
Mhm.
attached. And there's all these like things that really unlock by being able to do that. You can kind of have like chapter art participating, people sending messages, which my co-host and I read out in the show. So they're actually sending messages that kind of make it onto the show. So it's adding an extra element of feedback. And look, you could do this not using a podcast app. You could just do this with a message someone sends via Instagram. But I think it's kind of similar to what you're doing, which is bringing everything closer and more compact together. So there's a big difference of someone who sends what's called a boostergram, a message with some like a payment of satoshis attached to it. They're doing it within the app, so it kind of it's more like real time, for example. So it's all there, and someone's not having to jump out to go to Twitter to find the link that takes them to the website so that they can send a message via email.
Mhm.
It's all much closer, and I kind of see like a little similarity between that and almost what you're doing, which is that almost bringing it together.
Mhm. Yeah, I
That,
think technology allows for new things to happen, and it kind of, yeah, maybe actually broadcast media is a perfect kind of example of um you know there's like a Walter Cronkite or like a proper man at a desk kind of distributing what the message is, right? Like that's inherent in television or radio, is that like this one to many. That's what a broadcast is, right? And I think modern media landscape is much more peer to peer in nature, and so I think it needs to be kind of addressed and tangled with and allowed for.
yeah, correct. Yeah, so that's cool. So Unsigs, I guess, had that aspect after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, it's they're all minted, and then the audience could participate in that collection and putting things together. The perfect NFT was almost the opposite of Unsigs,
Mm-hmm.
which was, it was all about the interactions as they were kind of being minted and the Ponzi-nomics of it. Hence the name, the perfect NFT, which was very amusing and fun to participate in. So with this one that you're doing now, what do you see? And this being V2,
Mm-hmm.
what do you see as that aspect of the interactive nature of it? Is it kind of going to be before, during, afterwards?
There's
How do you see
basically a
that?
kind of I always say with not version 2, everyone already has the like fractionalized first piece of the collection, which is that little triangle, right? And basically in the next one, there you will choose exactly what you want, like within the parameters. Like if we use unsigs as the example, there's like a bunch of red, green, and blue and rotations. There's all these properties. If unsigs were to be not version 2, you would pick, I want a red 90-degree, blah, blah, blah. Like you choose all the different parameters. What's different about it is that, how do you say? Just because you pick something doesn't mean you will be the only one who can pick that. And so I'll try to use an analogy without giving everything away. Like if you were to pick real estate sites in like a two-dimensional grid, do you want the building plot at the center, or do you want the one at the periphery? Basically, everyone can pick the one in the middle. And every time you pick,
I'm going for the outside.
yeah. So
I don't want too many neighbors.
This is actually the kind of the point. And I have cruder analogies that are more fun maybe for going through it. Let's say that I'm a female and I go to a party and there's a bunch of dudes, right? There's some attractive dudes and there's fucking like people that look like me who are horrible, and everyone in between, like, and there's other ladies.
You're working on yourself, man. Yeah. Don't worry.
but like you get to pick who do you want to sleep with, right? And you're a total hedonist. You have no kind of inhibitions. You can choose a very attractive person, typical standards of beauty, attractive, whatever, and you can sleep with them, but everyone else is going to also pick them. So you're getting this kind of experience which is shared, and also, how do you say, like maybe less unique, right? Or you can pick the grandpa off to the side that like nobody else picks, and have your own experience, right? That is like non-fungible maybe, or unique to you. And so what I'm doing is I'm allowing people to pick what do they want, and they have to deal with the ramifications that it's not about rarity, right? Like to me, the things that are rare in Unsigs are kind of alignments or simplifications, because there's only one way to be simple and there's many ways to be complex. And so people tend to gravitate to those things which are more unique, maybe because they perceive them to have higher resale value, or more kind of simple, pure forms. But in this case, I think, what I really hate about NFTs is the slot machine mechanic of, you get a rare one or whatever, right? I think that's like the dumbest thing. I've never...
And because it says rare.
Yeah, and it says rare on it. And so I basically, want to explode this idea of rarity, and kind of critique it a bit by saying you can pick whatever you want, right? Like just like that perfect NFT, except a little bit more, like the next step of that is that even if someone else has it, you can still have it. Because essentially, when you choose something, what I'm doing is I'm giving you one share of it, right? Like and if you're the only one who has a share, you have 100% ownership. It's just yours. If someone else chooses to the same thing as you, you're now 50-50 owners, right? Each, because they have a share and you have one share. And so there's two shares extant, and you get, 50-50. If a third person joins in, you now have 33% ownership. And so, do you pick something that you think will be collectively valued and interested? Or do you try to pick something off to the side, as you said, that you think like, oh, no one else will like this and it will be mine? And, if there's, let's just pretend there's 1,000 by 1,000 grid, right? Everyone's going to pick the thing in the middle, and you pick like 736 by, negative 626. Like no one else is going to pick that. You'll end up with something that is unique to you, and everyone else will be sharing the 0, 0, thing in the center of the Cartesian grid. And so what is rare kind of gets flipped on its head a bit, right? The thing that is, I don't know, traditionally valued or commonly held up to be, oh, that's the good one, that's the one I want, that is going to be, very likely shared. But if you're kind of like the perfect NFT, would you rather have a slice of something that everyone wants, or would you rather have 100% of something nobody else wants? Right? What is more valuable to you, or what is more interesting to you? I personally think, if you had 3 tokens. You'll probably like mint 1 or 2 of like the popular things that everyone else wants, and then you'll try to go and find like something that you actively think no one else will like.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you don't want like, I want this to be mine a bit. We all have that in us, this kind of like possessiveness or whatever, right? That you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Funnily enough, my mind goes to hide and seek.
The best hiding spot.
Yeah, it's like I used to play hide and seek in my house a lot with my friends.
Yeah.
And the best hiding spots were kind of almost these middle zones where it was it didn't really make sense. Like obviously like you could go in it's a fucking house. Like there's not that many places to go.
Under
but
the cupboards,
when you're
in the
small,
closet, whatever.
Yeah, when you're small, you're in you go in the closet, you put some pillows in front of you. It's like awesome. And I've played this game hundreds of times in my parents' house. But there was these 2 spots I remember which were just amazing. But they could only be amazing once.
Yeah.
And one was like up against the windowsill with the curtain kind of like just slightly draping over you. And it was almost like obvious in a way, but it's just such a weird position to be in. And then the other one was with it was on a bed. I was nestled kind of like behind a row of pillows, and then my dad was there kind of sitting on top of it. So it was also this like interactive element of like, oh well, there's some social things here. Like you're not going to ask Kyron's dad to get up to check behind the pillows, but he's probably not behind there anyway. But yeah, then there'd be like, well, the obvious spot if you're just hiding behind the couch, they're going to find you in a second. And then the crazy, amazing good spots, nestled in behind the piano, that's kind of been used before. That was
I totally agree.
Yeah,
it's exactly what I'm going for here. Is that like, downtown in the center is universally valued and well regarded, and there is something unique about it in that, like, if we just use the XY grid again, there's only one location. Every location only exists once on the board, right? But there is something about the centrality of it, or the if we were to talk about Unsigs again, like the reductiveness or the minimalism inherent in like those few, there's only a few ways you can be minimal in any given kind of rule set. And there's like, in Unsigs, there's like 31,000 other ways to be totally crazy and, exuberant. And in some ways, all that exuberance kind of blends together. Like there's a very, like, oh yeah, that looks like an Unsig to me, right? Like there's a bunch of colors and curvy lines that are whatever. And there's, so I get both aspects. But what I really want to explode is this whole notion of rarity and the slot machine mechanics of an NFT mint, where what I really liked about the perfect NFT, even though there was this kind of financial aspect to it, is you got to pick what you wanted. To me, that much more kind of echoed a gallery, right? Like I never like walked into a gallery and like, I'm going to randomly pick one of these paintings by, spinning a number, and that's the one I'm going to buy, right? Like, no, you should have a connection, I think, to, this speaks to me. I want this. And so I'm going to, acquire this or do things so that I can acquire it. So that's the kind of idea there, is that, well, you can have it. You know those little like the sticker dots they put under a painting to signify that it's been sold already in a gallery?
No, I've never been to an art show,
Okay.
so no.
So they put this little like sticker to signify like it's taken, right?
Okay.
In this case, a single piece can be taken by multiple people, right? Like, and they don't put it on the painting; they put it. But what I'm saying is, because this is generative, actually the number of stickers will actually change the painting or the piece of work. So
cool.
that like if we use the building example again, the height of the buildings will change as more and more people select them. Right? So like
it's almost like
add a story,
if you had
add a
blank
story.
canvas.
Yeah.
And the stickers were being put on the canvas, where would people put the stickers? Probably a similar thing. They'd, put it in the middle, and maybe some people would be going to the outside edges, and after a while. Will people who are participating in this be able to see
Yeah.
what other
So
people
what
have
I
kind of like
imagine
picked
happening is like
beforehand?
you'll have your token, right, which allows you to, create or interact or mint one of these pieces, and we'll basically visualize. You can pick your thing. If you put it here, this is what will happen. You put it there, that's what will happen, right? And you'll have to kind of balance that and come to a decision. And that's the other thing is like, um, with these 31,000 triangle tokens, right? They have a like potential energy. They can roll downhill. They can become something else. But once you've picked something else, that's like a one-way street. You can't go back. So if
Yeah,
you wanted to be purely like game optimal, you would never pick anything, right? Because
but then you just have a triangle.
you just have a triangle, right? And so it's always funny to me, like people are like, when triangles, when like I'm kind of sure that like once it's released, like you'll keep your triangle because you don't want to cross over the Rubicon or whatever and like delete your ability to pick something else. And if you because once you do that, the resale value is probably going to be less if you think about it. Because if you have a triangle, you can sell it to someone else who can pick what they want to do. But if you have your piece, then like you have to find someone who that piece appeals to. Do you get what I'm
Correct.
saying
Yeah.
there?
Yeah.
And
It's
so
like
you're destroying value in economic terms, or you're destroying options, which usually is linked to destroying value. But here's the other thing: is like if everyone doesn't pick a piece, doesn't cross the river, like then the piece probably has no value because it's just a 31,000 triangles, right? And there's nothing like interesting to look at. And so this to me is kind of like similar to like a high school dance or something. I don't know if you guys have it on Australia like they do in America, right?
once someone starts moving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's like
Yeah.
if you just sit at the edges and you never like ask another person to dance, like the night will just pass you by, and you'll just
Correct. Yeah.
oh no, it's the last song. I gotta ask somebody now, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is not an experience that's happened to me. I'm speaking purely from conjecture, and but you get it, right? Like so what I kind of want to say with this is a bit something like the act of participation and the performance is intrinsic and essential to the piece having meaning and being interesting. And it's not all about economics and maximizing your value, right? Like sometimes you just have to dance or you just have to take a chance or take a risk and do something and not be purely optimal, right?
Yeah, it's if we were like that, we'd all be robots and there would be no creation or anything like
Yeah.
that.
So
Did you
this is
ever
what I
get
mean about like this is what's exciting to me about blockchains is like these wouldn't really be questions or things that you could point out with here's some tickets, you can go pick a painting, or like I also think it's kind of exciting, this idea that even after I'm dead, if you have one of these tokens, like I think it'd be quite exhilarating. Maybe I'm an egomaniac a bit, but like if I owned a Picasso and I had the ability to change the Picasso by like adding a stroke to it someplace, right? And it's still being a Picasso somehow,
Yes, correct. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like that is a quite like almost like an aphrodisiac or like a powerful thing, that you could kind of alter this piece. And so I think it's a pretty interesting idea that um you know by having one of these things in the future, and because it's a blockchain and all the code is on chain, it's not limited to my lifespan, right? That it kind of anticipates and knows about my, the temporal nature of my existence, and that after I'm gone, like these are the rules I set. Like it's still in play. It's still kind of alive. And I think a lot of art is about immortality or achieving immortality, greatness, and that kind of thing of the author or whatever.
It kind of reminds me of, do you know the artist Grimes?
Yeah. I know Elon Musk.
Yes.
I'm sorry, that's the whole Elon Musk's girlfriend. No, she's Grimes. Continue.
So
I have been on
I need
Twitter.
I need to research this a bit more, but I believe she's done this thing where basically a lot of people are concerned about AI and how that's going to influence music, and in particular, people be able to take the very well-known, recognized voices of people.
I love the
and then
Kanye.
put them on.
This is great Kanye again, right? By like reusing the AI Kanye voice.
Yeah, and so I believe I've heard this. I haven't actually investigated enough, but if it's true, it kind of makes sense that she's kind of got this AI voice of her, and it's like, look, you're free to use this however you want. I just ask that for that I have some participation, at least in a monetary sense, of how you use this.
Yeah,
so if you're going to use my voice, to put it on like a jazz track or something, like sure, go ahead. There's no point trying to stop and fight this stuff, because people do not give a fuck, and they will just use this. Like it's just how this technology enables these things. Trying to rely simply on human, what would you call it, like politeness when it comes to technology is a fool's errand.
Yeah, I think it's really silly to try and like fight the internet and Napster or whatever, right? And pretend like
absolutely
do this.
Absolutely. And yeah, so it's this kind of thing as well, where she's allowing people to have that element of interactiveness. It's her voice, but she could die tomorrow, and this would still kind of be in effect. Almost like having a AI Van Gogh or something, and it's the one and only AI Van Gogh. There's no, it's the one that he kind of ticked and put his seal of approval on. Maybe he spoke into a camera specifically, stuff that you couldn't get anywhere else because it was only him doing it on this one-off thing to this one-off device or something. And then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, there's other AI Van Goghs around, but this is the one that he kind of approved. I think it's that way of also having that legacy that lives beyond just yourself. We're in a world where everything can happen because AI can do anything. It's like, yeah, it can, but can it do something meaningful is the other sort of aspect.
Completely.
Have you thought much about how AI impacts art? Has that been
I'm not
on your
super
thoughts
interested in it. I actually worked in AI before I did Unsigs, as just doing like boring stuff like predictive modeling and other things like that. Not really artistic, just sales forecasts and whatnot. But what's the point there? I tend to think that the artists in AI are the people who are making the models, and the people who are using those models to generate, a picture or something like that. They're essentially just like monkeys at a keyboard or at a typewriter. Like they're when you create a model in AI, there are, I believe, in a sense, you could say a finite number of inputs into that model. Like, let's say you're in OpenAI, in ChatGPT, right? And you can only send 4,000 words to the model, right? As like a prompt. If you take every word in the English language and every single slot, multiply those things out, like there's a finite number of combinations, right, that can produce a response from the model. And all you're really doing is traversing the space of inputs to create an output. Do you get what I'm saying, right? Like the simple thing would be like, if you have a math problem, which is addition of two numbers, right, and you can only choose numbers between 0 and 10, and you only have 2 slots to put numbers, you know, like all the combinations that can be produced by that thing. This is a more multi-dimensional problem because there's more stuff involved, right? There's more terms and there's more possible slots in the terms. But essentially, a human is just being like a search algorithm over the space of possible combinations of the prompt. And
I think I've got a really good analogy
please
for
do.
this. So have you heard of the Infinity Library?
No.
So it's basically this thing that this dude has created where you can, and he built it with reference to a work by Jorge Luis Borges.
Yeah. Okay. So I know the Borges thing or book.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, it's essentially like you can go to this website and you can type in anything. You can type in the most specific thing related to, I personally was like, oh, Kyron had a red toy truck when he was this years old. I lived in this particular location, and you just got to have to constrain it to, I think it's about 3,200 words or something, or 3,200 characters. And it will pop up and say, oh yeah, this was actually written before in this library, in this particular location, and it's in this particular book, and it's in this particular page of this book, and all of this being digital, of course. And sure enough, like it is there, and if you typed in the exact same thing again elsewhere, it would still reference to this location, and it's almost always been there. But it's not like if you're looking at that as an artistic piece, it's kind of funny because it's like on initial impression when I heard of this, it's like, oh my god, like this thing can and has predicted everything that ever will and could happen, but it actually is kind of uninteresting because it's not actually anywhere. He's written this code which, when you input something into it, will take you to a place where that code will execute and show you, yes, Kyron has been to this place and he had this red toy truck, whatever. But it doesn't actually exist anywhere. So in terms of like an artistic piece, I'm just the monkey putting in the inputs to go find where this thing is created. But what the real amazing thing is that this dude was able to create an algorithm that would create an infinity sort of type concept of, there's 26 characters in the English alphabet, add in the symbols, add in the 0 to 9, so another 10 numbers created in this certain manner with this algorithm where it'll basically only have one unique output. And so it's that kind of thing where it's like, yeah, I'm the monkey typing in this thing, finding out where it is. But the truly amazing thing is not that, oh my god, it's so specific to me, and look, it's my stories in this book or anything. It's like, no, like the cool thing is that this dude created a thing where it's just a one-off. Like I can type that and it only appears once in this particular library that he's created.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of a similar concept.
So I would, I'm just specifically speaking to the kind of like idea of like prompt art, right? Or mid-journey type things where an angel falling from the sky. Like, I would say that, of course, the higher dimensional space a space is, the more, I don't know, intuition or understanding of the model is important, because you can't traverse the entire space manually, like in the lifetime of the universe, right? So even though it is kind of bounded and finite, there's probably some level of understanding and training, the same way that, to understand a paintbrush. But we had the kind of same question in architecture schools, like, who is the architect? The guy, who made Rhino, or the, lady who made Rhino, this 3D CAD software that we use to make, to design and make architecture, or the architect sitting in the desk, modeling and designing a building, right? And I argued to some extent, exactly what we just discussed, that in some ways the tool prescribes the output. And so, like, the supremacy of the tool maker in a creative process, right, is kind of like, if you make a better tool or a different tool, you enable kind of other people to explore what that tool can do. But I'd kind of, maybe this is my reductivism and my desire to go from Unsigs and Python to blockchain, like just go a layer down, right, to the kind of core fundamental of the thing, and to strip away extraneous factors, because I think we've talked about literature a lot. In some ways, I believe literature to be like the highest art form. I don't know if we've talked about this, but that
I
logic
can't
is.
remember if we talked about it that in particular. Do you want to enlighten us?
I mean, because like I think that there's no excuses, right? Like, it's probably like why I like football versus swimming. Like football is like you can get a plastic bag, throw some, corn husks in it or thing, and like you can play football anywhere in the world, right? And that's why it's like a globally popular sport, because like, poor people in the middle of nowhere can play football, whereas like swimming is dominated by America and Japan and now China, right? Because like I hate it. I went to University of Michigan. Small anecdote, kind of funny thing. Michael Phelps, the like most gold medal athlete ever, right? It was from University of Michigan, and there was this Russian lady I was at a party with, and she was relating this experience of this tall, lanky kid in the back who was like, I'm gonna have to miss the midterm this week or next week or next month. And she's like, no, you can't miss it. And then when he came back and she recognized like this was Michael Phelps who was telling her that he had to miss the midterm and and then he came back with like 8 or whatever 9 gold medals. I know this is a dumb tangent, but like the point is like not to diminish his athleticism or his, like freakish genetics and everything, but like I hate swimming because you have like essentially the same sport with like 9 different events you can compete in, like the 100-meter breaststroke, the 100-meter, all the different variations. Then you have the medleys, then you have the relays. And so like by doing one thing, you can get like 10 gold medals or 10, you can compete in 10 events, right? Versus like, I don't know, what's a different sport, like shot put. There's just shot put,
javelin,
right? Like there's one.
Yeah.
So I don't think like multiple swimming medals should count as multiple medals. I know there's a difference between, like 100-meter versus like, a 800-meter kind of thing. But I would argue
much like in sprinting
in
versus
sprinting versus long distance running, I can kind of buy it. But in swimming, it seems more like someone who's a good fast swimmer is also the same person who is a good endurance swimmer in a way, right? Not totally accurate probably, but okay. So that's all to say writing, literature, like it's like more like football than it is like swimming. And so I'll give another example. Photography is more like swimming, or cinema, right? Like filmmaking, like there's cameras, there's budgets, there's all these extraneous factors which you can kind of use as an excuse that like, oh, if only I had another couple $1,000,000, I could have done what I wanted to do, because we could have got the right lenses, or we could have got the better costumes or better actor, right? And with literature, it's just like it's just you and yourself, and there is no external constraints on it. And just with, as you said, 26 letters, some digits, and some punctuation marks, like it's incumbent on you to make those things sing. And to me, that is incredibly kind of focusing, and how do you say, it reveals like the nature of the person doing the writing, as opposed to the realities of their existence and how much money and capital and blah 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 that they had access to. Does that make sense?
Yeah. With podcasting, so a lot of people will look at, what's a podcast, and the definition is becoming a little bit hazy. But a lot of people will still think like, oh, Joe Rogan's podcast, he does, technically, I would say he doesn't, because he doesn't have an RSS feed. He's only on Spotify. That's the only place you can find him. But all of these people who had video on YouTube and then audio, what a lot of people don't realize is even though the video seems to have some really big numbers, usually it's the audio that is where most people consume it. And the beauty of the beauty of audio is actually not being able to see the person. And this is very much reflective for our one
today.
Not many people actually tune into the YouTube videos. And
I thought you were making a dig at the camera today. And how many?
No, not at all. I mean, if anything, you turning blue was a artistic masterpiece.
If I was green, I would.
But die. So what people really enjoy about audio, and they might not realize, is they construct an image in their head of who this person is. So it can be kind of jarring sometimes to have heard a person your whole life and not even know what they look like, and then see them and go like, oh, that's not actually, I think that what I wanted.
Literature is actively constructed in the reader's mind. I don't think this is an obvious thing, right? But and this is like at the core of why people usually prefer a book to a movie or whatever, right? It's like and also like when you have kids, why it's so important for them to read and not just watch media, right? Because if you don't learn how to read and to like actively construct and imagine things and perceive them in your head, like you are limited to consuming things like that are in front of you and are more easily, not actively created by you. So even though, if we talked about this when we talked about Unsigs, this creator versus audience member, I'd say, there are degrees of participation in the audience member which vary with different art forms or medias, and reading to me is like this kind of very simple, pure thing, which is like a pencil and a paper. Even you could get more reductive, an oral tradition of like a story, right? Of like relating from an elder who can't read and write the story down to someone else. That like it's
I would even argue then that the way that it is narrated out of the elder actually adds kind of unnecessary.
It makes it easier to consume, right? As opposed like that is a more of a consuming mode than reading it and having to create the voices in your head and
Correct. Yeah. One of the most jarring things for me
books on tape
was when it was even worse was when I watched the first Harry Potter movie and realized her name was Hermione and not Hermione, like I had been pronouncing it in my head the entire time. Hermione. It was world shattering, man. It was like, what the fuck is this? This is just like, it's all wrong. And that's also why nowadays I don't actually read. I really try and come into a book with a blank slate. So it's funny because I have to hear about it, and there's got to be a reason why I'm reading it. Otherwise, I'd just be indiscriminately picking up whatever trash that I find. So there's got to be at least a something in there. But I've got on my a list on my phone of probably like 200 books. I've just gotten these recommendations because at some point something about it sounded interesting. But now they're just all on my phone, and I'm kind of like going through them, and I've got the option if I want to look it up, to read about it, to even in the books themselves, they'll have the preface by the author.
I never read prefaces. I hate them.
Neither. Introductions to like Cicero or something. I was reading on government the other day, and I had an introduction, and I just went like, I don't want to be told what I should be getting out of this book. Like, let me read it first, and then I'll maybe come back to it and see, oh, that's an interesting point that I might not have realized.
You have an engineering background, right?
Correct.
Do you guys talk about, I think probably in most like primary, secondary sources?
That would only be when we were creating assignments. So not too much.
I'm strongly in favor of primary sources, right? Like I don't care what other people have interpreted this thing as. And maybe because
Yeah.
I took a few like literature courses, and it all became about like literary criticism instead of literature. And
Yeah.
it's like, shut
Gross.
the fuck up. I don't care what you
And
think about this. I
I
don't.
say gross as a guy who does book reviews.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, it's just like, just read it. Like if a book is worth reading. I had my best friend. He's a Taiwanese guy. His brother um is like a huge movie fan, and I also like cinema, right? But like we didn't ever fight about it, because like I love this friend of mine, um and I respect him and his brother enough that we wouldn't like get into it. But I never could understand like his desire to rank sort like top 10 X movies, or thrillers, or top like a movie, a piece of cinema, like it's worth watching or it's not. And yeah, I can objectively say one is better than the other. But and if
Yeah.
you take that to its logical conclusion, I guess you could make a top 10 list. But like the need to kind of do that is kind of, I don't know, it's kind of pointless to me, right? Like why? Like just it's was my life better or not having watched that or read it, right? And how much better or not was it having read that? Like how much did it take away from my life because I could have read something a lot better, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
In the book reviews channel that I do, I've never actually done one which is top
That's
10
why
ancient
you're
Greek,
not
top 10
popular enough,
anything.
man. You need to be
I
the
know,
top 10
man.
list.
I gotta do all sorts of shit
Yeah.
to make it really popular. And yeah, when I do those, I funnily enough, actually, it's just
You
a
should
thought
do
that
them
occurred to me now
shirtless,
is
man. I've been watching,
I have.
you
I've
do.
done fucking tons of them.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the very latest one I did with on Cicero, I was like,
No,
yeah,
I
I gotta
saw
do
your
this
thumbnail. I
shirtless.
saw
It's
it.
probably what the grace was.
But what's the do you know Natural Hypertrophy on YouTube? He's a
No,
he's this
it's a
French
guy.
guy. I'm like deep into like exercise YouTube, right? And he just
I'll look
sits
him up. Yeah.
there. He's like a hunk of a man, right? And kind of counter to the whole. I started in powerlifting, and that's what I do, is just the big compound movements. But
Hmm.
he's into bodybuilding, and talking about why bodybuilding is. I like him because he's kind of like a counterpoint to what I perceive as a more popular thing of like if you're into bodybuilding, you're like a weak, how do you say, like too focused on looks over function or something like that, right? But
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
and I don't do bodybuilding because I prefer just the big compound lifts, whatever. But I just like I enjoy him, and he sits every YouTube video of his is him sitting just like topless, talking to the camera, because he's just got like you know delts and
Yeah, I'm looking it
chest,
up.
and
Yeah.
just sitting there, and he talks with a French accent, and it's really hard to understand, but he's a magnificent man. I love him.
Oh, geez, that's funny. Before we totally
Mhm.
get off the art side of things, what were your thoughts were? Because I saw you were mentioning in the Discord recently, as in like a day ago,
Mhm.
about the moving of Unsigs from one chain to another.
Mhm.
So this is going. Yeah. Do you want to just explain what you were thinking with regards to
Yeah,
that?
so I mean, as we discussed earlier, for me, the interesting thing about blockchains is that they last, right? And you're kind of, as an artist, you're hijacking this kind of thing that was made for the transfer of economic value, to kind of use it as a stage for your creation. And at one point in my past, I believed that Cardano would be the dominant blockchain of our time. And so I chose to put workout on it, right? I no longer believe that to be the case. And so it's like, well, as an artist who is interested in their things lasting, it just seems like a logical conclusion to me that um, you would, I want Unsigs to continue into the future. And if I don't think Cardano will continue into the future, then why would I, not allow for them to have a life beyond where they are? And so the idea that I came up with is like, because it's a blockchain, it's immutable. You can never really how do you say, destroy it unless Cardano itself is destroyed, right? But the idea was that you would essentially send an unsig to like a lock, or you can't really burn it because Cardano doesn't allow for burns of locked tokens or locked things. But you would basically throw it into a black hole that we could publicly verify. Yes, that's a black hole. And when you do it, you would like wrap a string around it that says like, here's my address on Ethereum, right? And by doing
Yeah.
that, like you'd basically be throwing away the keys to your unsig on Cardano, and I would see that, and then I would say, okay, that unsig can be minted on Ethereum to this address only, right? So I guess
Yep.
let's imagine there's a very, very, very long string. At the end of the string, there's a little piece of paper with an address on it. When you throw your unsig into this black hole, the unsig goes in the black hole. The string is left kind of dangling out, and I can see that thing, and so I can say, okay, unsig 27316 can be minted by the name or the address written on it on Ethereum, and that way there's, you don't get two unsigs or whatever, right? Kind of thing. Like the one, by discarding the one on Cardano, you are given the right to remint it on Ethereum. But on Ethereum, it will be basically natively executable on the chain itself. And so,
Yeah, it kind of actually reminds me of the when people were creating paintings. I'm sure most of the paintings survived, but even then, there would be accidents of the painting being put on a ship or something, it's going across ship sinks. So it's like, oh, all right, well, that thing didn't survive.
I think most paintings don't survive, actually, right? Like most paintings are made, and then nobody ever looks at them again, and then they're forgotten. Like it's the very rare exception, and that's the thing that's interesting to me about blockchains. Is like humans literally make institutions to preserve paintings, like the Louvre or whatever, like these literal institutions to persist, because a painting is a very fragile thing, like canvas, oil pigmentation suspended in oil.
Yeah.
And that's what's cool about blockchains to me, is that like I think it gives you kind of a wider shot. One, because there's no gatekeeping involved, or less gatekeeping involved. Of course, there are now gatekeepers in blockchain space about what is, uh, should be looked at and whatnot. But you get what I'm saying. I was able to, with no kind of pedigree or history, kind of find and reach a small global audience of people and whatever. But yeah, you were saying paintings and
Yeah, so does it is that almost like an introduction of that element of destruction into the art, which is, it's built here to be immutable forever, but
well, this is what I say, is that
can.
technically, like, the unsig isn't destroyed, right? Like, it still exists on Cardano, but it actually kind of gets into the economics and some kind of like the mores or the norms around this, right? Like, if I was just to release on Ethereum Unsigs version 2, right? Like, I think most people would feel betrayed. Like, I bought this on Cardano. Like, how come you're making the same thing over there on Ethereum, right? Like, and I think somewhat rightly, like, people would be pissed, right?
Yeah,
That, like, why it's not quite the same as like Taylor Swift re-recording her, thing that was owned by the
the
other guy
masters.
or
Yeah,
whatever, recording the masters. It would be seen as betrayal, and I would not want to betray people who had supported me and allowed me to have kind of creative opportunities. And so this is kind of like a real kind of, I would not say compromise, but option. Like, I'm not even encouraging people to remint them. I'm just adding like an appendix to Unsigs at this point, saying, by the way, if you do this, you can, I don't know, turn the soft cover book into a hardcover book or something like that, right? Like, it's, you still have the thing, but I'm necessitating the abandonment of the ownership of the previous thing, I've never thought about it this way because it's fun talking to you. The thing is not destroyed. The unsig cannot be destroyed on Cardano, and I don't want it to be destroyed. Like I'm very happy that like it's kind of a time and a place where I was, and I was into Cardano. But it's really, if you think about it, it is the abandoning of the ownership of the piece, which allows you to own I wouldn't say facsimile, but like a chapter 2 of the piece on another chain. And that
Yeah,
kind of preserves its finiteness in a way, right? Or its you know, I don't know, property rights or whatever you want to say. And I'm not diluting the people on Cardano by, trying to do the same thing on Ethereum. And I should be clear, like this will be done for free. Like I'm not getting additional revenue for this. Like send me another, zero point 0.1 ETH or whatever. You will have to pay gas fees because that's the nature of Ethereum and blockchains, right? In order to do it, but this will just be done gratis, at cost, and I'm not receiving additional financial remuneration for it.
for sure. You'd probably know this museum. Do you remember the art gallery, his museum? I'm not sure what it was called, where basically the owner had said, I don't want. You can never move these paintings from these slots in the walls. Like they can only ever be on these slots. And then some robbers came in, like in a very unsophisticated manner. It was literally like knock out a security guard, get in, disable, like pull out the plug of the security
Mhm.
alarm, and then stole hundreds of millions of worth of paintings. And they cut out the paintings from the walls,
Mhm.
and then they learned eventually, like the next day, oh shit, they've stolen a whole bunch of paintings, but it was explicitly written in the will of this
Mhm.
lady, the benefactress, I
Yeah.
guess, that nothing can be put on these walls. Like these walls are only for these slots for
Mhm.
these particular paintings, and so they then had to just basically like reopen, and it was like now the empty slots are the kind of almost an homage because that
Was she like
you can't
the
actually have
donor to
anything
build like
there.
a new wing, and like she was saying like in this wing, this wall will always have this something? Is it that kind of the idea? Or?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, yeah.
yeah. That was it. I'm trying to like look it
The
up in
absence of the
particular what.
painting is the pain. Yeah, I get that. I like that.
And I think, and the other like analogy to that is, so these guys, they actually had to cut the paintings for some of them. They couldn't take it out of
Mhm.
the frame itself, so they actually had to cut inside the painting. So part of the painting is now altered. They then of course would sell that on, and some of them resurface years
Mhm.
later, and it's like, okay, well, is this actually the same thing? Because it's physically been cut.
Mhm.
The bulk of it is there, but is this
I
now the
I I get
same
a bit
painting that it
I get
was?
a bit
Yeah.
tweaked when people crop their unsigs. Right?
Yeah.
Like, and I do it myself too on my profile picture of on Twitter, right? My banner. So I'm guilty as well, but like I really don't like playing with aspect ratios. It's probably like my cinema snob thing, but like if it's shot in, 2.35 by 1 or 16 by 9, like the, wide screen. I was born in a time when most people had 4 by 3 televisions, the more square, rectangular things, right? And so most movies that we watched growing up on VHS tapes, right? They would crop in from the sides, and you
Hmm.
wouldn't get the widescreen presentation, and I hated that. It was so annoying to me that, like how could you butcher this? And people just
Yeah.
hated, the letterbox version with the black. Why are the black bars at the top and the bottom? I want to see. I can't see anything. The picture is so
Yeah.
small, but it's like somebody framed this to be like this. How can you just, chop off the sides and call it a day, right? Like there's something very brutal
Jesus.
about that to me.
Yeah. It was called the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum,
Okay.
and yeah, they had like a Rembrandt painting in there, Manet. Uh, so much of it's still missing
Mhm.
as of 2021, and it was like 500 million.
Yeah.
It's just cut from the walls.
I actually,
I was like,
it's not quite the same, but I watched a few of these like forgery documentaries. Have you
Mm.
seen them? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I read a book. What was it called? This is one. It was a long time
Mhm.
ago before I was doing the book reviews.
I
And it was
actually love
basically
the
about,
forgers. I think it's
yeah.
quite interesting, right? Like people get very angry at them, you know, that like they're forging Monets or whatever, or Picassos and selling
Mm.
these things. But I think that it's like a very kind of I'm not gonna say noble act, but I respect them, right? Like you're pulling one over. I don't often respect thieves or criminals, but I think it's kind of a very artistic thing to create something which is literally indistinguishable by these people, hiring experts and spending hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever, tens of millions of dollars, and it kind, to acquire a forgery, right? And then the idea that, like, well, is it even a forgery if people believe it to be real, or would be willing
It's
to
so
part,
good.
with
Mm.
this thing? And usually they're not very rich because they're paid tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars to create this thing, and then somebody else fences it and gives it a fake history or whatever, right? But to me, it's like there's something a bit rebellious about that, and like giving the finger to like the art world, right? And saying like, well, yeah,
A lot of the art world is very
yeah, yeah,
pretentious.
yeah.
That's why I actually enjoy chatting with you,
Yeah.
because I don't get that vibe from you.
I
For-
give it off on Twitter quite a bit. Like most people on Twitter are like, what are you doing? But it's like, yeah,
well, that's the funny thing. Your your style on Twitter is very. I think
acerbic.
arguing on the internet is the
Such a
stupidest
waste
thing
of
ever.
fucking time. But I
I,
partake heavily in it.
yeah, but you have this kind of troll aspect to you, which is the almost the poking fun
Mhm.
aspect of it. Whereas,
I started
oh,
to take
there's
myself much less seriously on Twitter these days, right?
well, that's good. That's healthy.
Yeah, like it's really just like why you just kind of like it's such a waste of time. I've started to view Twitter kind of like a video game. Um, And I have a lot of friends who are not like significant personalities on Twitter. Not that I'm a significant personality, but like within the Cardano space, I have some kind of like a reputation or something, right? Before I kind of blew it up and threw it all away. Um,
No, you're still part of the cultural
yeah,
memes
Zeitgeist of
from what I
Cardano.
can tell on there.
But
Yeah.
like it's this is the funniest thing to me, and I've said this a few times before. It's like NFTs are really dependent on Twitter and not on blockchains for all intents and purposes. You know,
Oh, that's so true.
like it's kind of like a big LARP, that like it's this blockchain, decentralized, blah 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 blah. But like without Twitter, like it's all dead. It's all gone. Nobody gives a fuck about this shit, right? Like it's and so you know, I stay on Twitter. I will unashamedly say this because it is beneficial to me to be able to have an audience of people the next time I do something,
Hmm.
right? Like for a normal startup, finding your first 10 or 100 customers is very difficult. uh, a 1,000, whatever, right? But probably the first 100 customers is like, how do you drive people to your website? And I'll give the best example. I worked in tech startups, and when I shared the Unsigs website to some of my friends from my previous work experience, like, the website's not so great, and I'm like, bro, you don't understand. Like, anyone on the website is buying from me already. They've already made the decision to buy,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
Or to
Yeah.
acquire
Because
things.
how else would
Yeah,
they've
like they're
found you?
not
Yeah.
discovering this from Google search. Like they've seen it on
Yeah.
Twitter. It's been discussed. They're blah blah blah, blah, and like they go to the website to kind of convert or purchase. I'd say there's very very like I think the conversion rate is much higher in this space than in other spaces where like I'm going to go to Nike.com and I'm going to look at shoes and or Amazon. Do you get what I'm saying? Right? It's like it's almost a foregone conclusion. And so you don't have to do all that like SEO stuff. You just have to be kind of present in the maelstrom, whatever the pronunciation is of this like online crazy Cardano crypto Twitter thing. And then you just throw something into the storm and like it will, catch, right? And you'll get your first 100 users. And so when I have a lot of friends who are like they have like 1,000 or 2,000 followers and they're like interacting and doing this stuff and they get all wound up over Twitter and they're like, I'm quitting Twitter. I'm like, you probably should. Like, you have nothing to sell. You have nothing to kind of put out there. Like, there's no need for this drama and huff puffery in your life. You derive no value from it, right? Other than like,
Yeah.
once you found like a crew of people, of like maybe 5 to 15 people that whose thoughts and ideas you respect, like interact with them in a Discord or in like, some other kind of more private forum where you can kind of enjoy their company. And like, there's no need to engage and get wound up into like this little internet platform that nobody gives a shit about. Like, I didn't start a Twitter account until 2 or 3 years ago. Because I didn't have any social media, but somebody told me like I needed to make a Twitter account for Cardano to have a stake pool, and I'm like, this is stupid. And back then, Cardano Twitter was all just stake pool operators being like, stake with me, like we're
Yeah. Yeah.
we're 24/7 uptime, low fees, and we give 1% of our profit to this charity or that charity.
X
It was
charity.
like
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
stupid. It was like idiotic, and yeah, I just think unless you can find a way to make it benefit yourself, or unless the exposure to ideas and thought is like a net add to your life, get off of it. There's no reason to be on it.
Yeah, well, that's why I have almost everything apart from a Facebook page. Everything else is under the Mere Models
Mhm.
name, and that just it's such a
Well, I'll
barrier.
give you
It's
the
a buffer.
social media hack taught to me by Patrick Toblerone of NMaker. Because my
Hmm.
original Twitter account was Monad Pool. Right, which is a monad is like a mathematical concept, but it's also a thing in Haskell and functional programming that allows you to do input, output, and some other stuff. But and like my profile picture was a dot, a black dot with a circle around it, which is like this kind of like symbol of
Hmm.
a monad. And Patrick was like, "You need to put your face up, and you need like a more
Yeah,
human identifiable thing." Because like nobody is going to relate with an abstract math notation. And people, this goes back to storytelling. Like people want like a hero or an anti-hero. They want like a personification, right? That they can kind of like
yeah,
Greek tragedy or whatever, like someone they can identify with and relate to. So I would really recommend making like like a Kieran account and then the Mere Mortals account. And I think you kind of do that because like your face is pretty prominent in the thing. But like,
yeah.
you know,
It's a weird barrier, man. Because I personally just don't give a shit.
yeah.
The whole social media thing.
Well, here's the other thing
It
about it too, is like you'll go from project to project, right? Like, so I have my Monad account and I have my Unsigned Algorithms account, and then I'll have a Gucci account and
mm,
I'll have a whatever. But I
yeah,
think it's important to, if you do decide to pursue social media and this stuff, to have it most like your dominant account be you. Because like it's you and then you're
yeah,
doing this, and it's you and then you're doing this, and it's you and then you're doing this. And those other, like, you can drive traffic to the other things you're doing, but if your dominant social media thing is like the thing you're doing and you try to move to the next thing, it's very hard to have
it's harder.
some kind
Yeah,
of conversion. And it's quite weird to me. I think it's a defect of the Cardano community. Like they're really into cults of personality, right? Because it kind of, the culture of Cardano is like about Charles, and everything flows down from there. And so you get these like mini Charleses, in the community of like these other cults of personality, and like that's what Cardano people are susceptible to, cults of personality and hero worship. And so they do this kind of thing. It's not just Cardano; it's humans in general. But I think I was in crypto for a decade. I never showed my face. I never, use my name, but it's a very different, like, it's more like a, anarchist crypto punk kind of thing in the other places. But in Cardano, it's like you got to dox, you got to show your face, like people want to support you, and I do think it is a it's not just a Cardano thing, it's a human thing to do that.
No, usually YouTubers they say to have it, yeah, correct, under a name.
Hmm.
Very similar mentality. For me, I like the buffer, the barrier. I
Hmm.
like it not being me.
Hmm.
That is that that front facing thing that is interacting. I prefer it's a kind of abstract thing.
Hmm.
It's mere mortals podcast. Like what is that? So it's uh honestly it's for my own sanity more than anything else. And I use them as a honestly it's almost like advertising. It's just a simple signal reminder
Hmm.
in a way, like, oh hey, this thing's coming out. And the actual driving and of things is stuff that I do out in the real world,
Hmm.
which we said we'd get to at some point, which is, yeah, I the reason that people listen in is a lot of it is they'll find me, sure, through an internet based thing, but it's most of it I think is just because of kind of who I am as a person, which is going out, meeting people, uh, interacting with people, sure, digitally, like I am here with you. But it's not like, here's my interpretation of the world that you need to see on Twitter or anything. It's always driving back to the podcast in that sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm okay with it. If I'm still struggling for and I'm not struggling for an audience. I've got a good band. I'd love it to be
Hmm.
bigger, of course, but yeah, that's one of those ones. But yeah, I think when you moved to Portugal, right, you started going to. I think you were going to like a Polkadot event.
Yeah, I went to one
That
recently, and there's just like there's so many crypto events in Lisbon.
in Lisbon, yeah,
And
yeah. So
we
how much value do you place on the physical interactions with people? It's nice having all this abstract stuff, but
I'm more of an
yeah,
introvert. I
what?
don't enjoy talking with people so much in
Hmm.
physical spaces, especially like if I don't know anyone else there. Like it's very hard for me to go to a social event by myself and not know anyone. Um
Yeah, I'm
and like
pretty much the same.
walk into like a crowd of people and be like, "Hi." Like I've literally done that in Lisbon once. And then I got it to this like digital nomad meetup, and I was a bit late, so everyone was already in their kind of circles. So if I know one person, like I can like kind of like wedge my way in and talk to other people. But generally speaking, I don't enjoy it. And but I would say I do credit moving to Lisbon with me kind of falling out of love with Cardano. I genuinely think that if I hadn't moved to Lisbon and I had stayed in, Japan or someplace else and just been in the kind of Twitter bubble, I probably would
Hmm.
still be bullish on Cardano and still want to. But it's just like when you get out into the real world and you start talking to people and you kind of like see what's going on, and yeah, like you realize the Ethereum guys aren't all boogeymen and whatever who are out to get you, and corrupt VC people. It's just like, okay, like that narrative kind of falls away, the kind of difference, and you realize like how very similar anyone into crypto is, almost anyone, right? Like in terms of like, I don't know, this kind of rebellious streak or skepticism of power, and all this other kind of stuff that I think is kind of intrinsic to Cardano, or not Cardano, crypto. um and it's just it's much harder to kind of defend your moat or your kind of distance from the rest of it, right? That like there's a certain kind of aloofness to the Cardano community, that like they're better than everyone else because of like peer review and academic blah 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 blah, right? And it's kind of like actually a meme in terms of, I don't know, how do you impact the real world and get stuff out there, and how much of this peer review and academic kind of stuff that you're talking about is actually about that, and how much of it is just like marketing gimmick. to
Yeah.
try to differentiate yourself from the rest of crypto.
That's one of those paradoxes I struggle with, because I have an absolute detestation, I guess, of the academic in certain regards. The eternal uni student who who's that I find that just a really weird, strange thing.
You
But
watched Arrested Development?
I've seen bits and pieces.
The useless, like, the husband of the sister who is like has like 30 master's degrees or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And he's like completely useless human being. Like I know that person in real life. I've met them.
Yeah.
My brother told me I was in danger. I have 2 master's degrees, so if I got
third, yeah, you're real in danger.
he was like, you would have been too far gone to recover.
Yeah, when I graduated, I got offered a position as I don't know, it was like a researcher, so it was probably like a paid.
That's what happened to me. That's why I got 2. Is they offered me a job researcher in the new program.
Yeah.
And so it was like, okay, the economy was in the shitter, but
yeah,
in my own
I thankfully had a good job to go to, even though the mining industry was also not doing so well at the time. But yeah, I was just like, I can't stay here. I don't want to be part of this life. But then you have to balance that with the scientific method is a pretty damn important discovery of how to influence the world and make it a better place. And there's this kind of practical have that practical element of utility, because you can be a jackass and just run out to the world and break tons of things as well. So yeah, it's like that mix of the two, which is what I find interesting as well. And yes, similar. That's what drew me to Cardano in the first place. And then there was also some meetups here in particular, which I enjoyed going to. It was like, oh, there's some actual real people involved with this as well. Similar sort of thing though for me. Like I'm very much more focused on Bitcoin nowadays and the money aspect of things, which is
I mean, this is what actually it's not. I wouldn't call it the money aspect, but I do think that we're not actually limited by the tech right now. And it is much more what I think I tweeted about this last night or a day or two ago. It's like I've come to realize that blockchains are probably equal or more financial beasts than they are technical beasts. And like if you're making a dApp or a protocol, you need to kind of think about like who are the existing crypto users today and what can you do for them, because it's unless you're explicitly addressing the onboarding problem of crypto, like how do you get people in and how to do this stuff and sufficiently abstract away the blockchain so that they don't know they're using it. Unless you're directly doing that as part of your thing, like your TAM, your total addressable market, is like the body of crypto users today. And also most of these kind of things do have network effects as part of their kind of limiting factor, that it's not very interesting to build a protocol that 2 or 3 people are using. It's only when these protocols get significant capital deployed in them that they actually start to kind of provide their purpose or function. And so I think it's just like one of the interesting things to me about all this stuff is like the whole ETH killer narrative is kind of dead. I think there might be, like I'm keeping an eye on some stuff people will laugh at, like Solana. Not because I like or believe in Solana, but it's just like, to me, it's kind of very clear that it's Ethereum is the default. L2s are where all the new scaling tech is being played out, like Starknet and ZK Sync and all these zero knowledge rollups that will supposedly solve the trilemma. But you have this kind of this like snowball of the Ethereum and affiliated L2 communities that are just like rolling down the highway and steamrolling everything else. And I don't think that being outside of that is very useful to solving actual crypto problems. right? And I also don't think that, having been in the Cardano community, I can't speak about other L1s, but like, um, I think maybe it's from my R&D background, but like, in order to solve hard problems, you have to be willing to talk about them. And from the very beginning of my Cardano thing, is like, people were very against discussing problems, right? Like, I got so much like, why are you criticizing this? Why? It's like, well, in architecture and then in the R&D that I did afterwards, like, you have to discuss problems in order to fix them. And like, I often use this like, Alcoholics Anonymous example. Like, the first step is like accepting you have a problem. It's very hard to stop being an alcoholic if you don't accept that you're an alcoholic, right? Like,
Yeah.
no, that's never happened to anyone. It's like, I just stop being an alcoholic. And so, step one, identify a problem, and step two, decide, is this a, like, I have a problem picking scabs. Gross, right? Like, I have a scab that I just like picked for like over a decade or two, and it's just like part of my body. And it's a problem. It's gross. I don't care, because it's not like I derive comfort and satisfaction from picking it, and it calms me down because I'm neurotic, and I don't. The cost benefit to me is not worth fixing. Do you get what I'm saying? So I'm just saying,
Yeah.
step one, identify a problem. Step two, decide, is this a problem that something needs to be done about or not? I think a lot of people in life, including myself, spend too much time on problems that don't matter or don't affect them, right? And so, problem identification, and then like ranking of problems into, you know, probably being a raging alcoholic is worth fixing in your life, because if if it interferes with you doing other things that you want to do, then maybe you need to, address it. Um, I'm
Correct.
rambling at this point, but you got what
No,
I'm saying.
there's
So
a
Cardano, Ethereum. I feel like the Ethereum community, they know that Lido exists. They know that staking is a problem, and I don't see them trying to like sweep it under the rug. Like, they're having these conversations out and open, and to me, that's kind of table stakes for, are you actively trying to like participate and engage in a hard engineering problem, right? Is
yeah, gotcha.
like, if we're trying to get to space, we can't like pretend the rockets aren't blowing up on the launch platform and be like, don't talk about that. Like, it's just like, that's not a real. And that makes me inherently suspicious of people doing that. Like, are you actually trying to get to space? Or are you trying to sell equity or stock in SpaceX? Right? Like, if you're, and the analog to that would be, are you just trying to sell your token in crypto? Right? If you're actually trying to get to space, you need to be having conversations about why your rockets are blowing up. I'm not accusing Elon or SpaceX of this. I'm just using this kind of analogy, right? Like, if you
Yeah,
if you
that makes sense.
if you actually want to solve hard problems, it's like almost mandatory that you talk about them. I'm not aware of
Yeah,
many problems that
of
can be solved
course.
without talking about them.
Yeah, the truth is the antidote to basically everything.
And I'm not saying there
The
is a truth. Like, we don't know what it is. Like, so, like, we need to talk about it to figure it out.
the
Like, the
process of finding
yeah,
truth perhaps is the better way of phrasing
yeah.
that. So I've been spending probably the last 3-ish years to 3-ish years in this, what I was talking about before, is podcasting 2.0
Mhm.
community. And it's actually the thing that got me into looking and thinking about the possibilities of what a cryptocurrency can actually do, what a
Mhm.
digital money can actually do. And my problem, very much the same. It started off with a problem. The problem was like, it's very hard to connect as a podcaster with your audience. It's
Mhm.
ridiculously hard
Mhm.
because, as I was saying, you have to do it through all these other mediums. Join me on Facebook, blah 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 blah. And which is just a terrible way of doing it, and introduces all sorts of complexities of specific platforms. And then what if you get kicked off that platform? What if you say the wrong thing, and
Mhm.
etc. And the technology of what we've done in the last 3 years, and when I say we, I play a very small part in this, was the enabling of like these, what I think is going to be a completely new form of communication and media, and will be regarded as such in, I don't know, 5-10 years time when it's really kicked off. But the technical the technical stuff is so completely solved already. It's RSS. It's using RSS and the Bitcoin Lightning Network. That's all it is.
Mhm.
And not much of RSS hasn't changed. It's the
When you say RSS, you're
what
talking about like these like push notifications you can get on.
So I'm talking about the RSS protocol, which is essentially it's just this is how you write a blog post
Mhm.
or something, and you've got a structured format. You use the like item level to say this is a particular post,
Mhm.
and so it's almost I don't know how to explain it in a program. It's not a programming language.
It's
It's
just
just
it's
a way of
metadata, right? Structured
yeah,
metadata that
essentially.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just a structure, and it's a really beautifully well constructed structure. And where what we've been doing is kind of just like adding on to it, but it's in the addition of adding on in new creative ways and making it easier for application developers. I mentioned Fountain before, but there's a whole bunch of them out there to interop with each other,
Mhm.
to showcase things in a different way. It's so little of it is about bandwidth or the technology of phones, of speakers, of
Mhm.
audio, of any of that. It's just here's ways of showcasing this in a new way that is uh, easier for other people to interact with and be creative with of their own. And so yeah, I totally agree, man. Like the technology portion of things, there's kind of like big breakthroughs, and there is yes gradual things which happen over time, which allow for new creation, um, new interactions between humans. But it's the technology piece is definitely way less in my mind than I would have previously said
Yeah, I
3 or
mean,
4 years ago.
recently, what I've kind of come to realize is like blockchains are pretty undifferentiated and commoditized, right? And it's what's much more interesting to me nowadays is the applications and protocols that run on them. And block space is fairly undifferentiated and just like limited by how many people are participating in that blockchain. And so if you actually want to do things in the real world, you kind of have to use the chain that most people are using or that has like a widest access, because otherwise like you're just limiting yourself to a smaller subset of humanity, which is, you know, maybe there's a reason for doing that, but I tend to think that the point of most alt L1s, you know what I mean when I say alt L1, like a
Yeah, yeah,
non-Ethereum, right, is before smart contracts went live on Cardano, I thought that the like brain power and the kind of thinking behind Cardano would be kind of represented in a Cambrian explosion of unbelievably new and profound protocols that were built on it, because I assumed that everyone in Cardano was like this like functional programming god who would figure out good ways of doing things. um but after smart contracts came out and everything was just like the Uniswap of Cardano, the Aave of Cardano, the you know what I would call fast followers, like they're not innovating in the space, they're not inventing new protocols, they're not delivering new functionalities, they're porting over existing Ethereum applications to Cardano. And it's like, what the hell is the point of that? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me to just be re-implementing the same protocols on another chain with less people and less capital in it. And what it kind of made me very cynical and skeptical of is that the main point of an alt L1 is just like, it goes back to like Litecoin and all these other things, like to be early and to be, like to oh, we missed the boat with that Bitcoin thing, so we're gonna fork Bitcoin and make this thing called Litecoin. And if Bitcoin is gold, then we're silver, right? Like
yeah,
I've
yeah,
seen
yeah.
this over and over and over in the crypto space, and it's just like it's the useful utility of being a developer on an alt L1 is kind of like being a big fish in a small pond or whatever. You're actually a small fish, but you get to feel like you're a big fish because you know, the kind of moat around Cardano is so big and so steep that like there's not many people you're competing against. And so you have all these like, I don't know, this outsized Cardano has like such a large market cap and a very active community. But I'm skeptical now of like the actual number of users. That it seems like it should be easier to get attention and users on Cardano than on Ethereum, because it's just like such a big field to compete in. But I'll use the NFT example because it's the one I kind of know. I think one of the reasons the Cardano NFT market stalled out is the only people who made NFTs on Cardano were people who were already in Cardano. You get what I'm saying?
Gotcha. It wasn't
Yeah.
artists or other
And
creators coming
so
in.
what that means, like it's almost like you had like a regional sports level, right? Of like, this is the Canberra, Sydney, whatever, like the the Pacific West Coast of America, of like that basketball league, right? And so you obviously have like less talent, less depth, less like level of athleticism in that league than you do in like a world-class sporting league, right? Because you're just, the same reason that smaller countries have a harder time participating at the Olympics, right? When you restrict yourself to a smaller set of people, your 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 um your chances of having like the exceptional genetics and upbringing required to perform at a world-class level are just less. And so the Cardano NFT scene has like a very, I would say, like amateurish kind of feel to it. And even the DApp scene to a certain extent, I'll include myself, right? Like, I'm not saying that everything has to be slick and polished, and not like, I do kind of prefer this homebrew thing, but it just felt like it was not really seriously trying to be a part of this world level thing. And I would differentiate that on Ethereum. Like, you had people like you said, artists and people who were not in the NFT scene who decided to make something on Ethereum, because it was like, oh, that's where you go if you're interested in exploring like digital NFT art based things, right? And I think that kind of holds true for NFTs. It probably holds true for other things too. Like, if you're just a business and you're thinking of doing crypto, or like incorporating crypto into your business model or whatever, like, why wouldn't you? If you're just doing payments, just use Lightning, Bitcoin, right? But if you do need smart contract programmability, then just like, why wouldn't you do this? If you're not invested in the token of this like ADA or AVAX or whatever the L1 is, like, you have no reason not to. Why would you limit yourself to this small subset of the population?
Yeah, man. All right, I'll I haven't looked into all of that stuff, but making good arguments. Oh, geez. Where I did want to ask. What was the last final thing that I wanted to ask you? Oh shit, Portugal, man. Dude, you gonna still be there in
Yeah, you coming?
8 months'
You
time?
coming?
Yeah, potentially next year sometime.
Awesome,
I'm looking
awesome.
at
Looking forward to it. Please,
I'm
please.
looking hopefully around the summer period.
I'm
Yeah,
in Lisbon,
that's
so
kind of
try
my
try to come there. I'm getting a driver's license. As a
oh shit.
38-year-old, I had my first. I know how to drive. I had a license in the States, but it expired when I moved to India and then Japan. Because I don't know. In Australia, do you have like a license at the national level, like an Australian
Correct.
driver's license?
Uh,
Like
I've got a Queensland
in the
one.
U.S., it's yeah, it's like, you get a driver's license in Michigan, you move to California, it gets reissued in California. You can transfer it, but
Cor-
it's issued by the
yeah.
state. And this was a really
Correct.
weird
Yes, it's the
quirk.
same here. Yeah.
In India, I think you have a state or a national, like, it's a driver's license issued by the national
Hmm.
authority, maybe, but I think. But the issue is, Michigan is not allowed to have international relations with Japan or India or other countries, and so American licenses traditionally have been not had this reciprocity, whereas like Canada will have reciprocity with Australia, I assume, and so like an Australian license is good in Canada, a Canadian license is good in Australia. And in order for that to work, you need to be reciprocal, right? Like I will acknowledge yours if you acknowledge mine. But because, the American states are not allowed to have international relationships with other entities, historically that's been the problem, I believe. I don't know if it's still the case. So anyways, long story short, I wasn't able to get an Indian license when I moved to India. Then I didn't get a Japanese license because it had expired, and I was no longer a resident, so I couldn't renew it. And then, so I'm taking driver's ed courses as a 38-year-old. It's so kind of funny to me to be sitting in these. But when you visit, I should have a license, and it should be much easier to get out of Lisbon. But until then, I'm stuck in Lisbon, essentially. So please come visit me in Lisbon.
Yeah, for sure. Do you know any Portuguese? Have you been learning any?
Eu não falo português. I don't speak Portuguese. And, my kids are now in a Portuguese school. The first year we had them in an international school just to like ease their transition and adaptation.
Yeah.
But we do plan on staying here and getting passports. And I imagine myself living and dying here probably. So,
cool.
How do you say? We are trying to pick it up. That was you were saying you have a really good Brazilian friend?
I got a really good Brazilian friend. I want to go visit him before kind of Europe next year, and I speak Spanish pretty well. Learning Portuguese has been relatively easy so far. I haven't done that much, but the crossover with Spanish is.
But you're learning the Brazilians.
Correct. Yeah. I don't know how much transfer there is.
It's not. I mean, they can understand each other. They're mutually intelligible, but it's so different. Like Portuguese sounds like Russian or Ukrainian to me.
Yeah.
It sounds like an Eastern European, Slavic kind of thing. And like, what's the Brazilian movie? City of God, Ciudad de Deus or whatever. Deus.
Dios.
Have you ever seen this?
No.
You'd enjoy it. To me, that just sounded like Spanish, like other, South American cinema that I've
funny
watched.
Because when I hear Portuguese, it sounds almost Arabic to me.
Really? Yeah. There's so many consonants, and I've actually heard Portuguese people tell me that, like, when they're overseas, sometimes they'll hear something from like the corner, and they'll have to be like, "Are they speaking Portuguese?" Oh no, it's Ukrainian or something like that. Russian.
Yeah, they do have a lot. It's because the actual words themselves, they're very, very similar to the Spanish ones. The core of the word is there. Leche will be leche, but it's spelt with an IT, and it.
I know that word.
Yeah, of course, with your gallon of milk a day.
Yeah, my gallon of milk.
So there's who knows, maybe you can be the driver, I'll be the explainer.
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome, man. Yeah, cool. If anyone is new and interested in just like, I don't know, checking out what you've been up to, want to get involved in some Twitter arguments with you, what's the best place to do that?
Monad Alexander. I'm exploring other communities now, and probably going to be setting up shop in Ethereum. We didn't talk about the thing that I've been working on is this like
oh shit, yeah, the insurance thing. We'll save that for next time, man.
Whatever. Yeah, next time maybe we'll have a demo or something by then. But
cool.
It's gonna be fun.
Yeah. Completely forgot about that.
No, I did too. It's fine. I enjoyed the conversation.